What's up guys, my name is Ace, and today I wanted to break down a very underrated piece of equipment that you may not be fully aware of at this point, or you may not know exactly how it works, and this is the Hunter Bot. And diving right into the basics of this is in the tactical equipment slot, and it's described as a personal defense drone that hovers in the air and targets enemy equipment, field upgrades, and Scorestreaks, and it can counter grenades. So let's dive a little deeper here and see what this looks like in-game. With these, when you throw it out, you want to make sure you're not throwing it into a surface, otherwise it will just destroy itself. And generally speaking, I'd recommend throwing it up in the air, just to get a better vantage point, but it will stay at the elevation that you throw it at, and it will just hover in place. So it doesn't follow you around the map or anything like that, it just hovers where you throw it, until it gains a line of sight on a field upgrade, piece of equipment, or a score streak that it can target at least. And then once that happens, it will fly in a straight line toward that in order to either damage it or destroy it fully. Now, when it comes to the range on this, it appears to be effectively infinite when it comes to equipment that you'll see on the map. The only requirement is it has to have a line of sight on that equipment. And with this hovering in place, pretty much any equipment or grenades that are thrown in the vicinity of it, it will end up blocking them, kind of like a trophy system. And this even works against a combat axe, as long as it's close to where the trajectory of that combat axe is, since the combat axe does fly a little faster than a lot of other equipment. And then another little note with this is these don't detect each other. So if you're using the Hunter Bot and an enemy is using a Hunter Bot and they both have a line of sight on each other, they just ignore each other entirely. Now, it's the exact same story with field upgrades, at least ones that exist on the map itself. So if you throw down a munitions box or a squad link or a fear trap, anything like that, if this Hunter Bot has a line of sight on it, it will destroy those. Also, very interestingly, when it targets equipment, it will fly in a perfectly straight line from its current hover point to that equipment, and if an enemy happens to get in the way and this hits an enemy directly, it will kill an enemy player with a direct impact. So it does have the possibility of killing enemy players, but that's more luck-based than anything. It's not something you can really reliably count on. Also, I should bring up a key exception here when it comes to this countering field upgrades. This is the trophy system. In this case, the trophy system wins. So the Hunter Bot will try to target a trophy system and it will fly in the direction of it, but the trophy system will block it just like any other equipment that it's meant to block. So that's all pretty straightforward in how the Hunter Bot counters various equipment and field upgrades on the map. And it's also worth noting, for any equipment that it can destroy, it appears that it will always destroy it in one hit. However, let's now talk about score streaks, and this is where I feel the true power lies with these Hunter Bots, and where I will be primarily using them. When it comes to score streaks, it works the exact same way in that if the Hunter Bot has a line of sight on that score streak, and it's capable of targeting that score streak, it will fly in the direct path to it and deal damage or destroy that streak. Now, in addition to that, we're going to cover this at the same time. The first overclock for the Hunter Bot is called Scorestreak Slayer. And this one increases the amount of damage you deal to a score streak. So we're going to be looking at how many of these Hunter Bots it takes to take out many of the streaks in the game, both with or without this overclock. And let's start it off with UAVs and counter UAVs, since it takes the same number of Hunter Bots to take out either one of these. And the way this works is without the overclock, it takes 2 Hunter Bots to take out either a UAV or a counter UAV. Whereas with the Slayer overclock, now it only takes 1. And that is very powerful, because this is just a piece of tactical equipment on your class that you spawn in with every single time you respawn, or if you're using Scavenger, you're picking these up all the time, or Gearhead, you're recharging them. Assault Packs, you're also getting a new one every time you throw an Assault Pack down, and that allows you to take out a UAV or counter UAV without really putting in any effort. You just throw one of these up in the air, and that streak is gone. Now, I also tested this against a skewer. The Hunter Bot doesn't target the skewer at all, so it's not a counter to that. For a sentry turret, it takes 2 standard Hunter Bots or 1 Slayer Hunter Bot to take out a sentry gun. That's pretty powerful against that. As for Hellstorm, same thing with the skewer. These just don't target the Hellstorm missile at all. Then we have the Watchdog Helo, and this one's really interesting because without the overclock, it takes 4 Hunter Bots to take out a Watchdog. So you're generally not going to be able to do that by yourself unless you're dying or you happen to have Scavenger and you're getting kills and picking those up. However, with the overclock, it only takes 2 Hunter Bots to take out a Watchdog Helo. And of course, we can use the Tactical Expert wildcard, which allows us to spawn in with 2 pieces of tactical equipment. And that means you can take out a Watchdog Helo with this overclock, again, without even really having to put any effort or thought into that process. You simply throw 2 of these up in the air, that Watchdog Helo's gone, oftentimes before it can even fire a shot on any of your teammates. So these are really powerful against that, especially once you get the overclock. Then after that, I tested against the dog. It takes 3 standard hunter bots or 2 with the Slayer overclock. With the rhino, it takes 6 hunter bots to take out a rhino without the overclock and 3 with the overclock. For a harp, these don't target the harp. It simply flies too high, so this is not a counter to the harp. Even though you can shoot a harp down with a launcher, you can't take them out with these hunter bots. And then finally, for what I tested, we have the VTOL. And without the overclock, it takes 6 hunter bots, whereas with the overclock, it takes only 4 to take out a VTOL, which is pretty impressive considering how high of a streak that is. So there we have it. Against streaks, these hunter bots are actually very impressive, especially when using the overclock and also especially when using the TAC Expert wildcard. And as a result, if you do have a specific loadout that's designed just for taking out enemy streaks, it's the one you switch to when the enemies start putting streaks in the air, I would highly recommend using TAC Expert and the hunter bots with the Scorestreak Slayer overclock. Because especially if you're combining that with a launcher, you can quickly spawn in, toss 2 of these up in the air, pull out your launcher, and finish off even a VTOL very, very quickly. And like I said, that's where the true power of these hunter bots really come in my eyes at least, is dealing with score streaks. Now, one potential issue with this is you don't necessarily have much control over what the hunter bot will target. Although one thing I'll mention is it does seem to prioritize score streaks over ground equipment. As you can see here, I'm trying to destroy these munitions boxes that are much closer to the hunter bot, and I thought the hunter bot would just prioritize whatever's closest, but it keeps going for the helicopter. So it does appear to prioritize streaks, and while that's probably a good thing, and that's what I would generally want to see, what if there are multiple streaks in the air and you want to select which one in particular that you want to target? Or what if you actually wanted to target equipment on the ground instead of a UAV that's up in the air? Well, this is where the second overclock comes in. And this one is called Locked On, and with this, it allows you to aim your hunter bot and lock on to the exact streak or equipment that you want to target, so it won't end up targeting something that you don't intend for it to target. And this is what it looks like in game. You just get the red diamond that appears over the streak or equipment that you are targeting, and then when you release it, it will be guaranteed to go for that specific item. But of course, that does mean you're sacrificing on the Scorestreak Slayer overclock, which I think is far superior overall. I just wanted to point out this is an option for you, and also if you don't use this second overclock, you may run into some issues with it not targeting the thing that you actually wanted it to target. And there we have it. That's going to wrap it up for the full breakdown of the hunter bots in Black Ops 7. And overall, like I said, I do think this is flying under the radar right now. I don't think a lot of people are really aware of the potential power of these, especially as it relates to taking out enemy streaks. I think this is an absolute must-have on any loadout that's designed specifically for taking out enemy streaks, because it's just so good at doing that without really having to put in much effort or time to make that happen. Now, of course, those are just my opinions on the hunter bot, and I'd love to hear from you guys in those comments down below. Now that you know exactly how these work, how are you feeling about the hunter bots in Black Ops 7, and do you plan on using them on at least some of your loadouts? Just let me know down below. If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.